It's crazy the amount of people that come to us having played paddle already for a year or two and they still have problems with their grip. They need to get this right at the beginning, and hopefully this video will help. Hi guys, Sandy here. In this video today, we're going to talk about the changing grip, from your forehand to your backhand side, what grip you should be in, and also some common errors with this, and also what you should be doing if you want to correct your grip for paddle. This is actually our first week in our Learn the Basics course, so I'll put that link in the description down below, but if you enjoy this video, that is a good place to go afterwards if you want to know the steps to get into the game. Now, if you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. That way you won't miss any of our weekly videos, and hopefully that will also help you skyrocket your paddle. We've talked about the grip before and we've covered it where you should be the continental grip for all of your shots in paddle. Now you find that by sliding your hand down the racket like this, and it's also called the chopping and shaking hands grip because that's the action that you would do for both of those. Now, preferably you would use this grip for forehand, backhand, volley, bandeja, everything like this. Now, I know a lot of people, they come to the paddle court either from tennis or a different background, and they're used to using a different grip or slipping into another grip for this shot. It is okay if you are learning at the beginning to have a slight variation, and when I'm talking slight variation, I'm talking about, from your continental grip here, just moving the hand round ever so slightly to a slightly forehand grip and ever so slightly to the backhand grip. This can often be a transition that players use if they've come with an extreme grip, because it's very difficult to go from an extreme grip to the continental. So this is a kind of halfway point that it's actually not a bad idea to get into this grip if you are struggling getting straight into the continental. So if you are one of those players that wants to have the grip ever so slightly round from continental, there's a few considerations. First of all, you would only do it at the back of the court. You don't do it from the net. You don't want to be twisting the racket in your hand when you've got less reaction time, and also it's a kind of blocking motion from there. So you want to make sure you use continental for volleys, but at the back of the court, you can do this variation. But importantly, you have to put your left hand on the racket. If you're just trying to find that right grip without using your left hand, it can be very difficult to be accurate with that. Whereas the idea of the left hand is it holds the throat of the racket here, and you can make these minor adjustments relatively easily, because between shots, so once you've hit one shot, you put the left hand back on the racket, and actually your right hand is not gripping hard at that point. It's only holding the grip gently, and that way you can make any kind of movements that you need. So I just want to quickly talk about how hard you should be squeezing the racket. Like I just said, in the ready position, you have your right hand on gently. Then what happens is when you come back into your take back position, you end up squeezing on the way to contact, and then you have a firm squeeze when you're actually contacting the ball. That way the racket head is not wobbling and you can kind of keep control on the ball. But the rest of the time between shots, it's nice and relaxed on the grip. So the biggest common error when it comes to the grip, particularly at the back of the court, is major changes on the grip, without using that left hand. Tennis players, they come with a kind of Western grip, and then they try and switch on the backhand side. And that switching, especially if you're not using the left hand, and especially as extreme as that, is more than likely going to end up making a mistake. People also make that mistake at the volley, but today we're just focusing about, the back of the court. So really important, use that left hand. And now we're going to talk about how you can actually kind of correct or improve your grip towards the continental. So the best way to actually improve your continental grip is by practicing in a really kind of controlled environment. If you're trying to correct it in a match, it's really difficult because you're obviously focused on the points, the score, what's happening in the game, tactics, everything like that. But the best way to do this is to find a wall, and it doesn't have to be on a paddle court. You can do this at home. Make sure you're in that continental grip. Turn yourself side on to the court. This is the kind of basic, first progression, and just practice hitting that ball against that back glass, holding the continental and using your wrist like this. Now, I know that looks really basic, but you've got to improve your confidence and control on the ball before you can start hitting a little bit harder and then changing sides. Once you get a little bit more confident, you can do it forehand and backhand side, keeping that continental grip. You can hit forehands and backhands turning in the middle, each time putting your left hand on the racket between your shots. And this is a good way also to kind of practice your compact swing and control on the ball. And if you want to get kind of really keen on it, you can actually put a little kind of post-it or target on the wall so that you've got something to aim at, and that's also a good way of improving your accuracy. But I highly recommend, if you are struggling with the Continental grip, practicing in a controlled environment against a wall, you know, and the nice thing is that everyone has a wall, whether it's, you know, the side of a, you know, a building or your house or something like that, that you can just hit. And we're only, you know, 2 or 3 meters away from the wall at this point. You've just got to gain confidence with the Continental grip before you step on a paddle court and start trying to use it in a game. One of the things I love about paddle is that it's very easy for people to play, and they can get straight into a game with a few friends, and you don't need a lot of advice at the beginning. You know, you're already playing a sport and having fun. One of the other sides of that, though, is that often players don't have lessons at the beginning, they don't use the correct techniques, and therefore it's very difficult to change later. And the grip is one of those. You want to make sure that you have the right grip from the start, because that way it is the kind of foundation for all your future techniques. So really focus on this to begin with. On this side, I'm going to put a free tactics video that kind of goes into tactics that you can use if you're playing matches. It's quite basic so that you know how you should be starting off. And then also on this side, I'll put your basic serve technique, because that's another thing that players need to know when they're starting out.